Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today again, we have two commentators. Our usual Thursday commentator is here, Mike Piwowarski. He is of The Rundown and of Arms Room Radio. Mike, thanks for tagging along today, man.
Am I right in here that you just called us taters? I like that. That's a pretty good sound. We're the Thursday taters.
Commentators, but yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
All right.
It's a pleasure to be here, Paul. Thank you.
All right. And our other commentator here is John Anderson, who is getting ready for his nighttime gig. John does the Get Off My Lawn podcast. John, thanks for coming along today, man.
Absolutely. And, just Mike, so I think we're both some pretty special taters. We're not that common. We're uncommentators.
Oh, I like that. Uncommentators, starring Gene Hackman. Sounds like a movie. Yeah,
it does.
Isn't he about 125 years old by now?
It's an older movie, Paul. It's just a reference.
Okay.
I want Bradley Cooper to play my part.
I want Denzel to play me.
Oh, boy. All right.
And Morgan Freeman narrates it.
Exactly right.
You see, I have to go with the high. I want Chuck Norris to play my part. I mean,
Huh?
I can see that.
Why not?
I can
do
see
it.
that.
He's got too much hair, though. I mean, it's hard to think of a tough bald guy. I mean, Anyway, let's go ahead. And
Kojak.
Telly Savalas. Who is he still around? Wow. Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get started. First story I want to bring up today. Cam Edwards over at Bearing Arms put up a story here today. No, I'm sorry. This is actually. Now that I look over at it, it hit my browser today, but this is an older one. This is apparently. I'm trying to figure out if this is the proposed rulemaking for the new they're trying to get the ghost gun banned through the DOJ through the proposed rulemaking. But what it's getting me is the date on this is not recent. This is from last year, so I may have screwed up and put an old story in show notes. I'm sorry.
No worries, Paul. We can wing it. We're good. In fact, my crack production team is telling me Telly Savalas died in '94 at 72 years old. So just to keep the references topical. See, Paul, and that's 30 years ago. I mean, that's still a lot. Your story's still a lot more recent than that. So
well, there it is. It absolutely is. Let's instead of that, let's take it back to earlier this week on the West Lawn of the White House, where Biden had set up one real gun that was disassembled in parts, and then two kit guns that were not worked on yet. And when he said he picks up the real gun and says you could assemble this in 30 minutes, well, and I've got the clip, I could play it here. I'm not going to because it's 2 minutes of wasted time, but I'd be willing to bet Joe Biden couldn't sit down in 3 days with an instruction manual and put that real gun together.
Right.
Yeah, I would concur.
It's not as easy as he makes it seem.
We came up with a new standard sitting around. I was with some dealers yesterday, and they're talking about what if it could be put together in 8 hours or less, that they're going to consider it more than an 80%er, that it should be a firearm. I say instead
hours?
Of 8 hours. 8 hours is what I saw. That if you could put it together in less than 8 hours, then it's a firearm. That's, of course, they're going to stack the deck, right? Listen, I mean, you can just build it slower, I guess.
That is so subjective, because I couldn't build it in 8 hours, but somebody who's done it a few times maybe could. That's just like going back to the trigger. You know, how fast can you work the trigger? Well, give the gun to Jerry Michalek and then give it to me. We're going to see a marked difference in how fast that gun can fire.
Exactly. You listen. Then, of course, just when building them, it's the tools alone would make the difference between 1 hour and 8 hours. If you're doing it the right way. But that's the government's rule. That's what was suggested by them in their 364-page document. That 8 hours should be the standard, and they'll float that and try and figure it out over the next 90 or 180 day period. But our suggestion was we should probably change the time period to match another federal time period. Let's say the amount of time that it takes them to approve a Class 3 firearm purchase. And if I could build my gun, longer than that, but, shorter than that, then it shouldn't be. So if they want to call it a minimal period, well, then let's bump down the amount of time it takes them to approve a stamp. Because all you have to do is pick up a stamp and go like that. Yeah. Listen, if I can beat that time, then it shouldn't be a gun. If I could beat that time, it shouldn't be an 80% gun.
There you go. And talk about arbor. What this reminds me of is New York City's definition of a gravity knife. If they can find one guy on the NYPD that can flick his wrist hard enough to open your knife, it's a gravity knife. And they've got some incredibly talented individuals on the NYPD that can really snap their wrists. They've got a lot of practice snapping wrists. So
I don't know that I'd be advertising that either.
That's
anyway, and podcast listeners, just go with it.
Just imagine the shake weight.
Yes. Anyway, let's now that I've totally ran us off the rails. My take. We're getting a lot of comments coming in. I knew we would. You get this one first over on the Facebook side. Whoops! I dropped John out of there. George Geller says Democrats are afraid we'll build our own guns. None of them are capable of changing a flat tire. And let's see here. And my take also on that, let me hit the right button here and bring John back in. He said using a hand drill. If there's one thing I do know about converting a kit to a functional receiver or a functional Glock, in the case of the 80% Glocks, those holes have got to be pretty darn precise. And within 1/1000th of an inch. That's nothing I would want to do with a hand drill.
No.
And not only in the right place, but the bit has to be perfectly plumb, which without a drill press is, even with the jig, I can't imagine building a functional frame without a drill press. I just don't know how you do it.
And the first rule in every one of those kits that you get is do not use a hand drill. It's right. Number one, do not use a hand drill is the rule. It says if you use anything but a drill press, the warranty is void.
Yeah.
Nice.
George,
I admit I've never assembled an 80% anything.
Nor have I.
I've never assembled.
I will fight for your right to do it, but I've never done it.
Yeah, just because I haven't done it doesn't mean that I'm against it. I'm 100% for it. I've just never done it. I've never built my own AR from a stripped receiver either. One day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got friends that have done that, and they say when you can match receiver and barrel and everything is manufactured just you can absolute tack drivers out of them when you control everything about the build, and I absolutely believe that. George says, bet you with the right CNC machine program, you can turn a block of aluminum into an AR receiver in about 3 minutes.
It's about 20. It's closer to 20.
Does take time to mill down because you got heat that builds up and you've got to dissipate that heat. But
As a CNC operator, it takes about 20 minutes to turn a 100% block of aluminum into a lower receiver.
Okay.
It would still take me a lot longer than 8 hours to build that into a firearm.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, and looking at, even if I had, let's forget the 80%, okay? Even if you delivered all the parts for an AR to my house, it would take me longer than 8 hours to build an AR.
That's what I meant when I said that.
Yeah.
It would still take me longer than 8 hours to turn that bare receiver into a functioning gun.
Yeah. Another great point. Mike Farmer says, whatever happened to Saturday Night Specials? They used to be the boogeyman. Now it's ghost guns. Well, they still are. We talked on, I can't remember, I think it was Mike, I think you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
I think it was on the weekend edition of the Bullet a couple of weekends ago that Jimenez Arms is now gone. That
Yep.
the demanding mommies finally made enough noise that they were able to make enough complaints that Jimenez Arms has finally been shut down.
Yeah, and we saw the disappearance of them, but for years ago we saw the disappearance of Saturday Night Specials, which were 5-shot, 6-shot revolvers, 32, 38 caliber stuff that got brought into the country or manufactured here, and they were predominantly being used in the Northeast, New York City, New Jersey, Washington D.C., and they all three came out with unconstitutional laws banning every firearm there was, just because, and that's why you kind of saw the disappearance of them, because they were all seized. They went door to door. You know how I know they went door to door? Because I know people that went door to door and had people come door to door, because guess what you had to do? You had to register your firearms in those cities. And after your firearms were registered, they decided they didn't want them anymore. They came door to door and took all your guns. But we'll never see confiscation in this country, guys.
Yeah, and,
It just won't happen.
And we've seen it in our memory. I mean, recent memory. If you're old enough to remember Hurricane Katrina, it happened.
Yep.
They went door to door, and there's a video. I'm sure you can still find it on YouTube. If not, it's on Full 30 or somewhere, or Rumble or something like that. But they went door to door in Katrina, checking on people, and Grandma said, "I'm fine. I got my rifle right here." They took Grandma down, and they took her rifle, her .22 rifle. Because, by God, Grandma can't have that rifle to protect herself. No guns in New Orleans, period.
Yep.
For the safety of all involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the name of safety for all involved.
There you go. Any opportunity they get, whether it be a hurricane or a fake pandemic, whatever it happens to be, they'll find a way to take them from you.
Yeah.
Well, too many people have forgotten that the government's job is not to keep us safe. It's to keep us free. And you can't have both. I mean, they're opposite sides of a scale, right? So I've always said that. You can't have complete freedom with any safety, and you can't have complete safety with any freedom. We try to find a healthy balance, but at the end of the day, I'm going to err to the side of freedom, because life isn't safe. None of us get out alive anyway.
That's right.
I'd rather die free than safe.
There you go.
Very true.
A couple more comments in here real quick, and then we need to get going to our SAF has a press release I want to get to, but we'll get a couple more comments in here. George says, if they keep going, Mike, if all the guns are gone, they'd go after knives and baseball bats. George, you're absolutely right. Just look to the United Kingdom. Yep.
Narwhal tusks. Right? Isn't that what they went after? Remember the London Bridge stabbing over there? They went back inside because all the knives and bats had been taken away from the good people. They had to pull a narwhal tusk off the wall to defend themselves against the gunmen. It's just a matter of time before they ban narwhal tusks.
Yep. They're going to go house to house looking for your mounted swordfish and take them from you.
If it saves just one life, isn't it worth eradicating narwhals from the ocean entirely?
It's It's for the children, guys. It's for the children.
Do it for the kids. Nancy's running for the kids. I'm killing narwhals for the kids. You are welcome, kids. You're welcome.
That's a hero amongst us right there, Paul. Yep.
There you go.
I'll expect my cape later. You can call me Super John.
All right. My Take says they're building full autos in Mexico. It's not rocket science. And he calls out another loner listeners. Is it Charlie Chambers? Charlie, by the way, Charlie builds real weaponry. So
he knows a thing or two about rocket science.
Yes, he does. And Mike over on the YouTube side says, I built an AR from an 80% lower and purchased the upper. Took me about 5 hours to complete, including milling using a jig.
Okay. Now you're a criminal then. And you're a criminal. Yep. You did it under 8 hours, you're a criminal.
Yep, I would delete that post immediately, or that comment immediately.
Take it down.
Yeah. Let's. As a matter of fact, let's do this so that okay. It's not like YouTube keeps these up forever anyway, but they do. So I do want to, and we're gonna.
But the AFT does, yeah.
Yeah. I want to switch gears here. My boss, Alan Gottlieb over at SAF, put out a news release today, and we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago when when NBC put out a story where they were again talking about 80% lowers. They bought an 80% lower. They gave it to the state police, had the state police convert it because they couldn't, and they took it back. And they went to the gun range, and they shot it, and they filmed it, and then they give it to somebody else. And let's just say all kinds of transfer laws were sidestepped in this. But press release came out today, and I'm just going to read this word for word as soon as I increase the font, because my eyes are not nearly as good as they used to be. Bellevue, Washington, Pennsylvania State House Speaker Brian D. Coulter has advised a group of gun rights organizations, including the Second Amendment Foundation, that he is reviewing all allowable actions at the disposal of the General Assembly in a reaction to call for an investigation following what appears to have been a violation of various state and federal gun laws in a recent NBC hidden camera report on ghost guns. The undercover report involved NBC reporter Vaughn Hilliard and the Office of Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro, in which Hilliard purchased 2 P80 firearm kits. He subsequently enlisted help from agents with the AG's office to complete the 80% kits, turning them into fully functional firearms. The finished guns were fired on camera. Responding to the investigation request, Speaker Cutler said the matter could be referred to the House Government Oversight Committee, or SAF could also pursue action from the U.S. Department of Justice because it involves alleged violation of federal gun laws. I'm going to pause right there. Where do you think that's going to end up if we go to the Department of Justice?
Probably the same place that everything ends up that goes to the Department of Justice. If it actually would help advance our freedom, nowhere at all.
Mm-hmm. Continuing on, at present, Speaker Cutler wrote, I'm reviewing all allowable actions at the disposal of the General Assembly regarding this issue. Again, I want to thank you for bringing this very important issue to my attention. And then Alan writes, we're delighted that Speaker Cutler is taking this matter seriously. When this apparent sting was first brought to our attention, we were stunned that anyone from a responsible news organization, pause, NBC's not exactly responsible, but would try for such sensationalism. Only a full investigation can determine whether and to what degree state and federal laws were violated. The NBC report aired on March 17th. It was first exposed by AmmoLand journalist John Crump, who covers the firearms industry. Quote, just because you're a reporter, you do not enjoy any special privilege to violate the law, Gottlieb observed. We're indebted to Speaker Cutler for outlining the authority and the limitations of the House of Representatives when it comes to investigations, and especially for providing other options that are available. We certainly intend to pursue this matter wherever the path takes us. This kind of nonsense may look good during a news broadcast, but the glimmer wears off fast if there is a criminal violation that may be prosecuted. You know, these transfer, they want universal background checks. What a universal background check means, even though I've known Mike for years, even though I've known John for over a year, I've known both of these guys for a very long time. If we go to the range, universal background check means even though I know these guys, I know they're good guys, I cannot hand them my FNAR with the Vortex optic and say, take this thing out to 400 yards, man. It's sweet shooting. I can't do that. We have to go to the gun store first, do a 4473, and then I can hand it to them so they can go out and shoot it. And then we have to go back to the gun store so I can do a 4473 so I can take my damn gun back.
Now, depending on how a proposed law is written, some of the laws allow for that. It's no different than handing over a suppressed firearm or a full auto firearm. If you're the owner and you're standing right there next to somebody and hand it over, a lot of those UBC bills allow for that. But what it doesn't allow for, picture this. Mike and I live in the same town, and my car breaks down, and I don't have time to get it into the shop today, but I live next door to Mike, and I say, hey, Mike, can I borrow your car and go to work, and I'll bring it back with a full tank? And Mike says, yeah, that's okay, and right now it is okay. But imagine if we had to actually go to the courthouse first and retitle that, retitle and re-register the car in my name in order for me to borrow it just to drive to work. And then at the end of the workday, Mike and I have to go back to the courthouse, retitle it, re-register it back over into his name just so he can park it back in his garage. That's what a universal background check would do for firearms.
Mike, you're muted. Did I mute you? Let me pull up my... There we go. Let me see here. Mike is not muted on my end. I don't know what happened. Mike's frozen, and now he's gone.
Am I back?
Now he's back.
All right, don't know what that was. Little glitch. I just said just as easy to hit the refresh button. Listen, the purpose of background checks for folks is not to check you, whatever they're telling you. The purpose of background checks is to log where the firearm is, just like it happened in New York, New Jersey, and Washington D.C. when they went and took all of the firearms away, the Saturday Night Specials back in the 70s. The purpose of universal background checks is to get more of those guns back on, because there's many guns that people don't know where they are because they've legally been bought and sold amongst consenting adults, consenting non-felon adults. Now they want to do this. The whole scenario you just heard, me handing a gun back and forth, having to go get a background check, if it was really about checking the individual, they would just check the individual's background. But what they do is they log the firearm information on that form, and then it's back on the books where it is and who has it. That's there to track the firearm for when it's time to come get them.
Mm-hmm. Well, a universal background check is worthless without a registry. Because let's say that two of us are at the range, and let's say that I borrow a firearm, a rifle from Mike, and I go shoot a competition with Mike's rifle, and he's not there. And an AFT agent wants to know if that's actually mine, or did we do a universal background check in order to transfer that for me to take that to that range and do that competition. Well, I say, yes, it's mine. And that's it. There's no registration right now against which the agent can check that. And so without a registration, which, correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, but that's been illegal since, 1986 with Firearm Owners Protection Act. Yeah. We cannot have a nationwide registration in this country. So if we had nationwide universal background checks without a registration, again, it's a worthless thing. There's no way to enforce it because there's no way to prove that wasn't my gun to begin with. However, if they pass that and then it fails because they find out, well, yeah, this isn't going to work, then they have laid the foundation for reversing FOPA, and now we can have a registration nationwide because we need it, because these UBCs won't work without it. So
well, remember, there is no... Go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
I was going to say, don't believe the smoke and mirrors. Don't let them blow rainbows and unicorns up your backside. They're trying to get... And the only reason anybody would want a registration, why would anybody need to know what guns I have or where they are? Unless they one day might want to take them. It's the only reason they'd want to know where they are. There's no other reason.
We don't have a national registration. Well, allegedly. There's no national registration. Right. We do have 17 states with registrations in them. So there's plenty of firearms already out there on the books. You take all the 4473s that have been done that are sitting in dealers' offices now, and the ones that have been turned in the ATF for dealers that have gone out of business, and you've got probably 50, 60, 70% of the guns in this country located. You know where they are. The issue of handing guns back and forth. It's asinine. Again, they want to locate the firearms, learn where the firearms are, so when it's time to come and get them, they know where they are. Is it a registry? No, but it'll take me 10 minutes to go get the information from wherever I want to get it from.
Well, and I want to bring up one point, and I hear a lot of there's a lot of jokes going around about this tragic boating accident. We need to work on this before there needs to be, because let's face it, folks, if it comes to it where these things are outlawed, and if they actually do outlaw AR-15s and the order comes down to go get them, let's face it, when the order comes down, the police will come get them. And
listen, and the like John said with the purchase, let's say we had an AFT agent show up, and I'll tell you what they do. And if you've worked around them and seen them, and if you've seen a liberal run agency, they'll come up to John at the range and say, "Is this your firearm?" And you say yes. John, the next thing they say is, "Well, show me the receipt. Show me proof of ownership." Just like they would with your car example. I got to see your title. What? I don't have a title. I don't carry a title for a firearm with me. Well, if you don't have the receipt, we're going to take it until you can prove that you own it. And this might be a gun that you might have got from me, or you might have got from Grandpa, and there is no receipt for it. Mm-hmm. And this is another way they take the firearm, because they say you can't prove it's yours.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, the burden of proof falls on the defense, where it should never be.
Absolutely right.
The
burden should always be on the state to prove their case.
And Mike's example of in New York, in New Jersey, the police did come for the Saturday night specials. If they outlaw the AR-15s, the police will come for the AR-15s. I'm just telling you right here and now.
I'm just curious, and this is just me riffing here, but I'm just curious, of all the keyboard warriors out there who are about ready to type, if they come after mine, they'll get the bullets first. Honestly, is that true? How many of you are actually going to fire on sworn law enforcement officers if they come? And if that happens, how many of you think that you've got enough ammo to hold them off before they take you out? And then it goes back to, you might die free, but is that the hill that you're willing to die on? Is the AR-15 worth more to you than your life? How many of the keyboard warriors are going to have to eat those words, and they'll just give them up? I mean, honestly, I don't want to get shot by the police. If they come for mine, they're going to get mine, because I'm still a law-abiding citizen at this point. I don't have any backup. I can't be civilly or criminally disobedient in that case. I hope it doesn't come to that.
You could be. That's it. And I hear this question come from other sides of this argument as well, and that's an individual choice. It's not one that I think that people go out and push. Let's hark back to 1775 when they were walking around and asking for militia volunteers. Did people say that? Did they sit in the bar and say ahead of time this is what they were going to do? We know who the conservatives are. We know our like-minded, political-minded friends, and those are the ones you would go and ask, but you wouldn't ask them publicly. I think that's a private question, John, no more than a sexual preference question. And to ask somebody to prove it is not appropriate. It's one of those things, and I'm not saying your question was inappropriate. I'm saying on the whole, in general, you're bringing up the talking point. That's what we do. But I think that question is one that will only be answered when the time comes. And if somebody tries to predict ahead of time and try and point out people that they don't think will, well, then those people are not help to our cause, and they're on the opposite side of the fight.
Right.
Get a couple. We're already over time, but in big shock. But Mike Take says if it was manufactured after the date the law changed, the ATF can track through gun shops. Yeah, if your AR lower has been, the serialized portion has been manufactured in the last 20 years, it can be tracked. If you were the first person to buy it, they know who you are.
Yeah.
And here's another thing, going back to the tragic boating accident real quick. Yep. Anybody who okay, let's say that the AFT shows up to ask me about the rifle that I bought from the gun shop. And of course there's paperwork saying that I bought that rifle. And I say, well, I lost that one in a tragic boating accident. So that serial number on their list gets checked off as lost. Okay, I didn't report it because I didn't have to lawfully. So you know what? It's sitting in the bottom of a lake or a river, who knows where. So let's fast forward 5 years later, when I've forgotten about that conversation. I've taken that rifle out to the range. An AFT agent happens to stumble across that range, sees my rifle, wants to check it, looks at the serial number and says, well, you told us you lost this one. It doesn't look very rusty. Did you lie to an investigator? How did you get this rifle back? It's the tragic boating accident is funny up to a point, but in reality, it's one of the worst things that anybody could actually do.
Yeah. Listen, it's a comedic statement. We understand that. Mm-hmm. It's a comedic statement where we all stand together. When the AFT shows up to ask you any questions about anything else, you give them the same answer over and over. And it's one word. It's easy to remember. Say it with me. Lawyer. Lawyer.
Yes.
Lawyer. Okay. By the way, you're here at the range. You want to violate my Fourth Amendment rights so you could take a look at a firearm that you think may have been without probable cause? Lawyer. Mm-hmm. Lawyer.
Yeah.
You want to come to my door to violate my Second Amendment rights, and you're going to do that by violating my Fourth Amendment rights? Lawyer.
Yes. Yes. All right. We are way past time, and we could easily, I know we could do another 30 minutes on this, but I got to get out of here, guys. My stomach says the lunchtime was a very long time ago. So, and my wife, I can smell my wife's dinner out in the other room, and it's torturing me. So, I want to encourage everybody, do come join us 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Tom Walls is going to be here. We're going to be, it's training day tomorrow. We're going to be talking situational awareness tomorrow. And Saturday's going to be a special one. The weekend bullet at noon Central Time is going to be Tony Simon, Beth Alcazar, Charlie Cook. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think all I'm going to have to do is say, hey, everybody, how's it going? Introduce them, and I'll come back in 60 minutes and shut the show down. That's all I'm going to have to do. So,
I can't wait for that.
Yeah. And one last thing to put a bug in everybody's ear. What I'm hearing is just a few more weeks. Keep listening. A few more weeks, and we will be hearing from the Supreme Court in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin case. That's, I'm hoping that comes down soon. I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 weeks. So let's hope it comes down the right way. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down here. Mike, John, thanks for joining me today.
Always a pleasure.
And John, everybody, first of all, Mike, on the way out, Mike, tell everybody about the rundown and tell everybody about Arms Room Radio.
Rundown daily at 5 p.m. Go to the Facebook, look for Rundown there. The Rundown, you can see it. And then Arms Room Radio started it all there. You could Saturdays live, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Just go to armsroomradio.com to see where you can hear us. And thank you, Paul, again for having me on. John,
tonight you got a really cool Get Off My Lawn podcast. Tell us about it.
I do. You can find that. I'm about what is it? I'm about an hour and a half, I think, away from getting out of Facebook jail. It's been a long 30 days where I cannot post this stuff on my Facebook pages, but you can find it later. I'll be able to upload this one later. I can't go live for 30 more days. So on YouTube under Sandhills Media, on Twitter under Sandhills Media, which is at Sandhills John, capital S, capital J, and it's Jon. You can watch live tonight. We're going to have Stephanie Schaefer, who is the Northwest region and also the Nebraska State Director for DC Project, along with Mary Forges and Susan Myers. Mary is from Connecticut. Susan is from Missouri. We're going to talk DC Project. They have another video that just came out on Tuesday. Really great video. Diana Muller is taking the DC Project ladies on the offensive, and they're tired. We all are tired, but the DC Project ladies especially are tired of reacting, sitting back on their heels, and letting the anti-gun people always speak first. So Diana and company are speaking up, they're speaking out, and they're letting the world know that gun owners are good people, and gun owners are the face of America's gun owner is no longer just an old fat white guy with a beard. Join us at 8 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah. Speaking as an old fat white guy with a goatee, they're not all
guilty. But no, you can find us on Sandhills Media on YouTube, and then as soon as it starts, I'll pin that video to the top of the Twitter page as well. Live 8 o'clock Central Time tonight.
All right. Everybody, thank you for watching. I am going to shut it down now. We will see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time. Thanks for watching, everybody.